my best friend's wife told him that she had an affair with me. The last 4 days have been the most horrible of my life. I have no idea how to deal with anything and wanted to get opinions on what to do next since I see posts like this on Reddit. My best friend's wife told him that she had an affair with me, which never happened. I have been married to my wife for 8 years. We have 2 wonderful kids. However, this is about my friend Josh and his wife Mary. I met Josh during my freshman year of college and we have been friends ever since. We have always shared our love for tech and he is always my go-to guy when I need someone to talk to. Josh started dating Mary 5 years ago. Let's say Mary has a very different set of morals than my wife or me. She is very loud, manipulative, and craves attention. Josh and Mary had been dating on and off for 4 years. They broke up often, but somehow always ended up together after a few months. Mary is always the one who breaks up with Josh and then takes him back. I also know that Mary cheated on Josh with at least 2 guys when they were dating, but somehow convinced him that he was not putting enough effort into the relationship. Josh always blames himself for Mary's unhappiness. My wife also knows about all of this and has always kept her distance from Mary. However, we do meet her often during parties with friends. Josh and Mary got married last year. Last month, Josh found out that Mary was cheating on him again and had an affair with one of her co-workers. Josh was completely broken and stayed at our place for a week before going back to confront Mary and kick her out of the house. Josh bought the house before their marriage, so he had to get the cops involved to remove her. From what we know, Mary moved back to her parents' house. I've been helping Josh through the process and he filed for divorce last week. Last Saturday, Mary came to Josh's house to collect her things along with her dad. I had advised Josh to leave the house when they arrived, but he wanted to ensure she did not take anything that did not belong to her. During her visit, Josh got into a fight with Mary and she told him that she had an affair with me while they were married and that we used to do it in their bedroom. This is all 100% false. I have always known that Mary was trouble and kept my distance from her. I feel she is just trying to hurt Josh by saying that. After that incident, Josh became extremely agitated and came to our house. I saw he was distressed and knew something was wrong. As I opened the door, he started cursing at me and accusing me of sleeping with Mary. Luckily, the kids were not at home, but my wife and I were there and we were both shocked by what he was saying. He tried to punch me, but fortunately, he hit my shoulder instead, allowing me to wrestle him to the ground and calm him down. I kept telling him that what Mary told him was completely false and that I had never spent a single minute alone with her in my life. My wife threatened to call the cops, which prompted him to leave. After he left, my wife was completely inconsolable. It took me hours to calm her down and convince her that Mary was manipulating Josh. I work from home and rarely leave my house without my wife or kids. I think she believes me, but she has been different for the last 4 days. Josh told many of my close friends that I was having an affair with Mary. He is not taking my calls or my wife's calls. My wife tried calling Mary as well, but she also did not answer us. All my friends, including Josh, think that I am the biggest jerk for getting involved with his wife. I have no idea how to convince anyone that this is false. I am just so frustrated. Can someone please give me advice on what I can do next? A deleted user said, consult with a lawyer, ask if you have a case to sue Mary for defamation. I'm serious. She's telling lies you should be able to prove are false, and she is doing measurable damage to your life and reputation. If a lawyer thinks you have a case, you should file as soon as possible. User Adniba said, honestly, that's messed up, dude. I struggle to understand, given the context, how your wife and friends don't believe you, but it sounds like you need to just clear the air with a simple denial. Offer to provide evidence to anyone who doesn't believe you. Tell them that you're happy to remain friends, but won't be discussing the situation further. It's their choice to believe you or not. As for your wife, you'll need to take a softer approach, but still firmly communicate that she needs to either believe you, be allowed to investigate and verify the claims, or you both should go to counseling. There can be no half measures, and she cannot continue treating you differently because you can't prove a negative. That's what I would do. I'm truly sorry you're going through this. I'll say a prayer for you. Your friend seems to be suffering from an extreme case of being manipulated. Update. First of all, thanks to everyone who suggested that we should file for defamation. I had been so focused on trying to get Mary to tell the truth and convince Josh that I had completely forgotten about the legal route. I was unable to update earlier as the lawyers had advised us not to say anything until we got a confession from Mary. After posting on Reddit, my wife and I spent a few hours that night reading through all the comments. We immediately decided to explore whether we could sue Mary for defamation. Some of you suggested that I should take a polygraph test. I asked my wife if we should find a place for that, and she smiled. She said she doesn't doubt me one bit, but we can't let people have any doubt that I had an affair with Mary. Our kids are friends with their kids, and we can't live with them thinking I had an affair with Mary. She just wanted us to be strong and solve the issue as soon as possible. In the morning, we messaged my wife's mother's friend, who is a very experienced attorney. We called her at the time she gave us and explained the issue. She said that we should pursue the legal route, but she doesn't handle such cases and gave us the contact of another attorney in her firm, setting up a meeting with her at noon. We went to visit her and discussed the issue. The lawyer told us that we could sue Mary as she has made false accusations, and there is a precedent for considering what she said as slander, as it attacked my character and we can prove emotional distress. However, she told us that a defamation lawsuit is a very long and expensive process and may take several years. She told us that Mary has a weak hand and she will not want to go to court. Hence, we should give her a way out by telling her to give a written statement that what she said was false. Moreover, as she said the false statement to Josh, we would need Josh to state what she said. I won't go into details here, but might post it in the comments later on. However, we came up with a plan for sending her a letter of intent to sue for defamation. The attorney worked on this, and we were notified that Mary received the letter on Friday morning at her parents' place. The letter told her that we would sue her by the end of the month if she did not provide an official statement in writing that the statements she had made were false. The letter also told Mary to only communicate via the law firm regarding this matter. As planned, I messaged Josh and told him we had decided to sue Mary for defamation due to the false statements she made about the affair. We would leave no stone unturned to prove that the allegations are false. Our lawyers will contact you next week, and we hope you cooperate with them and tell them exactly what she said to you. On Saturday morning, as I was cooking breakfast and my wife was sitting with our kids, the doorbell rang. I saw on the Ring camera that Josh and Mary were standing outside the door. Before I could tell my wife to stay back and not open the door, she bolted towards it. She opened it and started yelling at Josh. She's 5 feet tall, but she's scary when she's angry. She just started calling him names and asking how he could destroy our lives when we supported him at his lowest. Josh just kept saying he just wanted to talk to me and kept repeating that. He looked down. My wife just kept on yelling at him and telling him to get lost. Mary started talking then, saying that she was sorry for what she said. Josh was abusing her as she was packing, and she just said that to hurt him. She just kept on saying that Josh is such an idiot and has created such a big mess. My wife turned to her and told her that she better find a good lawyer to reply to our lawyers. At last, she told Josh that if he wanted to meet me, he should go and first make things right for me, and then she slammed the door. I was watching all this from the breakfast table through the Ring camera and realized that we had recorded the whole conversation, including Mary confessing her lies. I felt so relieved in the moment knowing that I had proof of her telling the truth. We forwarded the video to our lawyer and she sent a thumbs up and called us briefly to say that we should meet on Monday to discuss the next steps. After an hour or so, Josh messaged our friends group that he had done a terrible thing and spread false statements about me. He is ashamed of it and wants to apologize. Moments later, Mary messaged saying that some statements she made were misconstrued by Josh and that what he told everyone was false. Their relationship is going through rocky times and she would thank everyone for giving them privacy and praying for them. The rest of the day has been great. I have been taking my kids to their Saturday activities and playing with them while my wife was talking on the phone with all my friends' wives and her friends, gossiping about what happened. The only thing I told her was not to send the Ring video of Josh and me from last week and not to mention Mary's affair to them. I still think it's a private matter that Josh told us in confidence, and we should respect that. Everyone was shocked that Josh attacked me physically. Regarding my friends, I made a blanket statement that they all hate me in the last post. But in reality, 4 of my friends called me during this week to ask what was going on. They told me they knew how crazy Mary was and asked how they could support me. One of the friends was the one that Josh had called. He told me that Josh told him that Mary had an affair with me and he had filed for a divorce. He conveniently left out the part about her cheating with her coworker. I don't think anyone apart from my wife and I know the whole story. He knows at least 2 of the other friends Josh called and said the same. Due to this, the gossip started spreading that they were divorcing because of me, and most of my friends were just waiting on the sidelines instead of extending support to me. However, I think I learned who the people are that have my back in need. About Josh, we still plan to file for a temporary restraining order against him and Mary next week. The lawyer said we should be able to get it for Josh as there is clear evidence of danger, but Mary might be a long shot. We will see what to do from there. As for our friendship, it's done. It ended the minute he decided to punch me, instead of at least asking me if it was true. I can't have people like him around my wife and kids. He was a great friend, but my family and their safety have a way higher priority than him. For Mary, I guess she wins. My wife still wants to push to get her to pay our legal fees. We will see what to do on Monday. However, she was able to destroy Josh's support system with one lie. I was helping Josh through the whole divorce process, but he is on his own now. I also do not think many of my friends would be kind to him after the shit he tried to do at my house. I feel bad for him and I know he needs support and professional help. However, I did my part and I hope he understands what's right for him in the future. Thanks again for so many helpful comments. My wife also wants to thank all of you and I am glad that this is over now. This next post was made in the same subreddit by a user named Gold Independent. The post is titled AITAH for telling my husband his job as a stay-at-home dad is only easy because I help out. I tried to post this on other subreddits, but they keep removing it because my account is new. I am writing this from the guest bedroom because my husband and I had a fight. The thing is, my husband is a stay-at-home dad. 3 years ago, he wanted to quit his job and take care of the house and children. I work a decent job and earn most of the money. My husband takes pride in being a SAHD. He always brags about how it is the easiest job in the world and that women are just complaining for no reason. But the truth is, I help him with the chores as much as I can. In the morning, I wake up and prepare breakfast for them. My husband gets our daughter ready for school. I also do meal prep for lunch. All he has to do is assemble and cook them. I pack my and my daughter's lunches. When I'm at work, he does the cleaning and spends time with our son or does his own thing. Later, when I come home, I cook dinner, give my son a bath, help my daughter with her schoolwork, or play with them until bedtime. Besides that, whenever we do laundry, I fold the clothes that he washes and put them away. During deep cleaning of our house, we split the tasks 50-50. I also handle all the doctor's appointments. This system works really well, but I hate that he thinks my contribution is not enough, that he does all the chores and I do not even lift a finger. Moreover, he has a blog and TikTok where he films his days. He also makes posts about how easy it is to be a stay-at-home dad and that women just complain and are full of it. It is the easiest job in the world, he claims. I am glad he likes it, but I hate that he thinks he is superior to everyone and invalidates their experiences. I grew up in a house where my dad didn't even lift a finger, and my mom did literally everything around the house. He was the fun dad doing the bare minimum, so I do not want that to happen with my husband. Also, it is my house too, and I believe that if both people do chores, the stress becomes less. I also know many of my friends who struggle with doing chores as stay-at-home moms. I know women who work and still do the majority of the chores. His comments make me irritated. Yesterday, my friend Ashley came to visit. She is a mother of 2. Her son probably has ADHD and is very active. She has trouble handling him and gets no help from her husband. When her son broke a cup in our house, Ashley was apologizing. My husband cleaned it up and she was complaining about how exhausted she is. My husband scoffed and told her, "You must be doing the parent thing wrong because I am a stay-at-home parent too, but I never had a problem. My wife barely does anything around the house and it is so easy. Maybe I should give you a lesson or two." I could see Ashley was upset. I understand why. Later that day, I told him what he said to Ashley was very rude. My husband acted as if he said nothing wrong and was just being honest. I pointed out that he doesn't do all the chores. I help him with at least 40%. That's why he thinks it is easy. He again argued that those chores are not significant compared to what he does. I told him he is being mean to everyone. We got lucky that our kids are easy and not active. Most kids are hard to handle. He again scoffed and said, "How hard can it be?" We argued about this and he told me I am being ungrateful because no man would ever sacrifice like he did. I am upset and gave him some space. Was I wrong to point it out? Edit. I want to point out that I have no issues with him being a SAHD, I just don't like his attitude towards it and the way he thinks it is the easiest job in the world because, to me and most people, it is still a job that has no vacation days. User Far Organization said I was a stay-at-home mom and my children are now adults. I handled all of the household chores, laundry, cooking, and cleaning. I also took care of all the yard work on our acre of land. I volunteered in their schools and music programs, which often took about 30 hours a week. My husband did story time and often took care of bedtime. I considered the household tasks to be my job. I wouldn't have dreamt of telling someone else how they were doing it wrong. What an entitled and terribly rude comment. And he has a blog to tell strangers how to better manage their time. He doesn't even cook dinner, for heaven's sake. Please. User Resurrection Scary said, "Your husband sounds like an entitled, spoiled princess. You do all the money earning and 40% of the actual household labor as well. Stop helping him. If he thinks it's such a sacrifice, tell him to get his ass back in the job market and you'll be a stay-at-home mom while expecting him to contribute by doing exactly what you do now. Or since he thinks your contribution is so minor, just stop doing it." Update. Okay, I took everyone's advice and stopped doing my part of the chores. I told him beforehand that since he thinks my contribution to the housework is nothing, I would stop doing everything altogether. I explained that if he believes being a stay-at-home dad is easy, then he should have the full experience of it. My friend's husband doesn't lift a finger around the house, so I decided not to either. He was obviously upset and wanted to argue that I couldn't do this to him. He even tried to pull the incompetence card. I told him I was not going to do my portion of the work at home. I also used the typical excuse. I work all day at my office so that we can survive on one income. It is selfish for you to expect me to do housework. That's what I did. I didn't do any housework. I didn't wake up in the morning and make breakfast. My husband had to do it. It wasn't hard for him, but I could see he was moody. I asked him to prepare my lunch because that is also part of my job. He refused at first, but then I reminded him that he said he would do all the household chores too, which includes making my lunch as well. He only packed me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I didn't do meal prep for lunch. That was his responsibility to figure out. At night when I came home, I didn't make dinner either. I asked him to do it. He was shocked, but did it anyway. I didn't give our son a bath, which made him fussy and irritated my husband even more. I only helped my daughter with her homework and didn't assist with the laundry. For the first few days, he didn't say a word, but after a week, it became clear that he was getting exhausted. He was becoming increasingly angry over small things, and usually cleaning would help him cool off. However, whenever he saw a mess, he would throw a tantrum. On weekends, I went to my mother's house to relax. That weekend, we were supposed to clean our bathrooms, and he did that all by himself. As the days progressed, I could see him growing really angry with me. Even I admit that it has affected our intimacy a lot. Finally, after 2 weeks, he yelled at me that I had proved my point and that things were back to normal, but I could see he was very distant with me. Last night, I asked him to talk to me. He said he knew what game I was playing, but did not appreciate me treating him like garbage and not considering his feelings. I told him it was his words that being a stay-at-home dad is easy. I just gave him the full experience of it. He kept denying this and insisted that I should have been more supportive. All these weeks, he felt like nobody and underappreciated. He felt invisible. He started to hate me for not caring and dumping everything on him. He is still not talking to me. We have booked a couples therapy session for next week. Let's see if our relationship can withstand this challenge or not. Final update. This will probably be my last and final update. I wanted to let you guys know that we are not getting a divorce, despite what some of you hoped and cursed me out about in my messages. Seriously, who wishes for a stranger's husband to cheat on them? We did go to counseling, and yes, I sincerely apologize for my childish behavior because of a Reddit post I made. We discovered a lot about ourselves and our relationship during the counseling sessions. Firstly, I apologized to him and explained why I acted the way I did. I wanted him to feel that it is not easy when you don't have help. I also mentioned my mother's experience as the caretaker of our family, doing it all alone, which is exhausting. Looking back, I realized that was a stupid way to get my point across, but I was hurt and very annoyed that he thinks women just complain about housework when most of them, I'm sure, don't have help from their spouses. He expressed that he understands now. Those few weeks when I didn't help him really took a toll on him. He doesn't get tired easily, but since he was doing everything, it became tiring for him. I acknowledge that. After a lot of talking and communicating, we got to the root cause of our issues. He admitted that sometimes he feels insecure about himself, like he is not doing enough for us. All of his guy friends have jobs and provide for their families. One friend bragged about taking his wife on vacation in Greece, which made him feel small because he only made us dinner and gave me a massage while I gifted him a very expensive watch. He felt like he was supposed to be the provider for our family, but felt inadequate because I am doing well in my career while he feels stuck. It was one of those moments that made me cry. I genuinely appreciate it when he makes dinner for me and gives me massages. He is a good cook. I asked him if he wanted to go back into the workplace, and if so, he would have my full support. I know things will change a lot. We both have to make compromises, but it will be worth it because I love him and he is the best husband anyone could ask for. He says he doesn't want to handle the pressure of the workplace. Last time, he crashed and decided to quit. He likes being a stay-at-home dad, but also wants to earn something, so he is looking for a part-time job while continuing what we used to do at home. I encouraged him to explore freelancing and remote work options. He did find one opportunity, but it pays low, so the search for a decent job is still ongoing. He also apologized to my friend Ashley. He realized not everyone has it easy. We hit the jackpot with our kids because they are pretty quiet. People have different struggles. I know he is sincere because he deleted his blog posts about being a stay-at-home dad being easy. Also, unrelated news, Ashley is getting a divorce. Good for her, I guess. We are fine, our children are fine, and we still have one more therapy session left. Our intimate lives are better now. We found ways to communicate with each other rather than being petty. I was scared that our marriage would collapse, but I'm glad we stood strong together. This last post was made in the relationship advice subreddit by a throwaway account. The post is titled, "My wife constantly makes a conscious effort to humiliate me during my lessons over Zoom." While under normal circumstances, I would try to communicate my feelings to my wife, I am at my wit's end for how to handle this situation, as I have exhausted all of the typical conflict resolution means. Being a teacher, I am currently giving lessons over Zoom. I recognize that studying math over Zoom isn't the most exciting thing in the world for students, and I can barely get them to even pretend to be interested in my lessons when we're in the classroom, but they have done an admirable job of staying focused. My wife is making it extremely difficult on my end though. Several months ago when my lessons began, I went from working long hours to being at home all day. Unfortunately, my wife does not seem to understand that while I am at home and while I can occasionally help out with a chore or two, I still have actual work to do. Between lesson prep, grading, and meetings, my schedule is quite full. The first time she interrupted my lesson, she abruptly opened the door to the room where I was teaching and loudly asked me to do the dishes. This was unbelievably awkward as I was in the middle of teaching 3 dozen 10th graders geometry. I told her we would talk about it later, but not being deterred, she asked if that was a yes or a no. I said it was a yes, but that I was in the middle of a lesson. Without a word, she closed the door. I got some chuckles from the students, but a bit of red-cheeked embarrassment was the extent of the damage. The next time, 2 days later, she again barged in holding a pair of my pants that I left on the floor of our bedroom. She loudly stated, "You need to pick up after yourself." This time, before responding, I muted my mic and turned off my camera, telling her that I was in the middle of a lesson. Again, she walked away without a word. At this point, I moved my setup into the basement of our house so I could avoid further interruption. Since my basement looks like it probably has a few dead bodies buried in it, my students have begun to call me Basement Dad, which is endearing, but I would rather teach in a room where I'm not going to get asbestos in my lungs. The trouble really began when I started locking the door to prevent interruptions. My wife will begin by rattling the door a few times, followed by pounding on it. Then she'll groan loudly and say something negative about me. After that, I can hear her walking around the house, slamming doors. A few weeks ago, she was literally jumping up and down, stomping her feet in the room above mine. In the first months of these online lessons, I set up a hotkey to mute my mic and disable my camera instantly when needed, and luckily my reflexes honed from Counter-Strike in my teens have paid off. But there have been times where she has sneaked in an embarrassing moment for me. Every time I have patiently explained to her that I need complete quiet to teach my lessons, and she says, yeah, okay. Then in the next lesson, without fail, she'll find something new to complain about and throw a tantrum, trying to humiliate me in front of my students. While my mute game is on point, students have recognized something is wrong. One of my 9th graders even sent me an email asking if everything was okay. I had to make up a lame excuse about needing to mute my mic because of a sudden grinding noise that happens in my old basement. There's no way she bought that. Since I'm unable to go out, unable to even enter the school grounds, and have no place to go to avoid my wife, I'm unbelievably anxious when I teach. I have tried talking to her calmly, and I even tried to get angry at her. When I yelled at her for forcefully sliding plastic files under the door so they'd float down in the background during my lessons, she expected me to apologize for getting angry at her. How can I even approach this kind of problem? User The Last Baslope said, tell her that unless she wants to go out and get a job to support the family, she needs to cut the childish behavior and let you do your job uninterrupted. If she continues to act like a 2-year-old, let her know that you will leave to stay with family or in a hotel so that you can work. User Palace Athena said, not to sound harsh, but why on earth would you want to be with someone who is so unsupportive and emotionally destructive? User Loki said, tell her you got written up for being too distracted while teaching. Make her realize how serious your job should be taken. Edit, people seem upset or offended over the idea of lying to your partner. OP already tried to talk it out rationally. She basically ignored him and escalated her behavior. So these are probably signs of bigger problems either with her or the relationship. But this is his job. Lying isn't supposed to solve his actual problem, just to stop it from interfering with work. It's a temporary solution before he figures out the real issues. To this, OP said, I like the idea, although my school doesn't have a write-up system for teachers. She doesn't know that though. Found out about my wife's infidelity after testing positive for an STD. I am livid. The only person I have had sex with within the past 5 years has been my wife. I thought I had a bladder infection or UTY and scoffed when my doctor thought it was chlamydia. Well, here we are. I got the test results yesterday and I have chlamydia. Decided to start snooping, and it didn't take long to find the text messages between her and her boy toy. My guess is she doesn't even know she had it as well. She thinks I stayed up all night working, but little does she know I've already emailed her little lover boy's wife all the text messages. I warned the lover boy's wife that he's been sleeping with an infected woman and to get herself tested. I'm still deciding how to process this all, but wifey's going to wake up to my positive test results and the messages of her infidelity. The sun should be coming up in the next hour or two and probably will be the end of this marriage. Update. I'll make a longer update eventually. I didn't confront her that morning. Boy Toy's wife ended up responding to me, and she has not confronted her husband yet either. I'm getting my legal bases covered first. Update. My last post got an unexpected amount of attention. I guess you guys do deserve an update. The short of what happened was my wife gave me chlamydia. I found out she was sleeping with a coworker and planned to blow our marriage up that night. Thankfully, my drunken mind decided to wait. I had gotten into contact with the coworker's wife, giving her evidence of what was going on and informing her that the two cheaters probably both had chlamydia. I did this because I suspected my wife was cheating with more than one person. In her text, her lover boy had asked her if he was the only one she was screwing at the time, and she gave a non-answer. I know this woman well enough that I knew she was screwing someone else as well. Luckily, the co-worker's wife got back to me first thing in the morning to explain that she figured he was seeing someone else. The two of them were privately separated at the time, and their separation agreement stated they were not to see anyone else during that period. She had her own suspicions and thanked me for reaching out. We agreed that she would not confront her husband until I could cover my own legal bases in exchange for the evidence I had of their affair together. She also confirmed to me that her husband didn't have chlamydia, at least when they were still together. I decided not to confront my wife that morning. I pretended everything was fine and dandy while I looked for lawyers and dug deeper to figure out the mystery of the chlamydia caper. I installed a keylogger on my wife's personal PC and quickly got access to a secret email, where, guess what? My wife was talking with someone on a hookup website. The best part was that it solved the mystery, as the man informed her he tested positive for chlamydia and that she probably had it. Even better, these emails were from months before I was infected myself, meaning she knowingly infected me with chlamydia. Disappointed that it was not in fact the chlamydia fairy that caused all this, I have a lawyer. It's not looking well for my soon-to-be ex. The fact she knowingly infected me made my lawyer salivate, along with the mountain of proof of her infidelity. The house we live in is my parents', and we've kept our finances separate since the beginning. Her chances of getting much, if anything, out of me are pretty slim. I served her the divorce papers last month. I bought a security camera on Amazon when this all started, saying I was going to put it over our front door. I hid it in the living room the morning I decided to confront her. I decided to take one of the top comments from my first post on how to drop this on her. We were sitting and having breakfast when I said, "So I'm curious, does know you infected him with chlamydia as well?" The short of it was, she cried, apologized, tried to claim it was a one-time thing, tried to claim she loved me, tried to blame me, screamed at me that I don't make her feel loved, yada yada, you get it. I served her the divorce papers and her eviction notice right after. I'm staying with my parents until she's out of the house in a few weeks just to be safe. I'm juggling if I want to try and press assault charges against her for knowingly infecting me with chlamydia. As my lawyer said, it should be pretty easy to prove with the emails we have. Overall though, I just want her out of my life like the STD she is. User Euphoric Echo said, the worst part of this is that she knowingly infected him with an STD. That's just such a nasty thing to do, especially to someone you supposedly loved enough to marry. User Load Altruistic said, it's always hilarious when cheaters get caught. It's funny that they try to apologize. Never be fooled. It's not because they're actually sorry. They're just sad that they got caught and jeopardized their stability. This next post was made in the relationship advice subreddit by a user named What About the Kids. The post is titled, Caught Wife Cheating. Now, what about the kids? I'm really sorry for the long post, but I had to get it out. I lost my first wife 10 years ago. At the time, I had 2 daughters who are now 21 and 24. Life went on after about 3 years, and I met my current wife. We met innocently enough. We kept bumping into each other at various places around town. We never really talked, but sometimes we made eye contact, pointed at each other from a distance, and just smiled. Then one day, while getting my car worked on, she walked into the waiting room while hers was being serviced as well. We finally had a long conversation and decided to go across the street for real coffee since the service center coffee was bad. We talked for about an hour until I was paged that my car was done. I asked if she would like to have lunch one day to continue our conversation, and we exchanged numbers and set a date to meet up. We dated for 2 years and then got married. She has 2 boys, now 10 and 14, who moved into my house after living with her parents for 3 years. My daughters loved her, not as a stepmom, but as a big sister. Having another adult in the house with 2 teenage girls was a blessing. Life is grand. I love those boys as if they were my own, and I want to adopt them when they can make that decision on their own. The younger one calls me dad, while the oldest found it awkward at first. I told him to call me whatever he felt comfortable with. He chose my first name. The girls called her by her name. My wife is a stay-at-home mom. We decided that until the kids were adjusted, she wouldn't work but would volunteer at school lunches and other activities. Daughter 1 went off to college and has now graduated. The younger daughter graduated this past morning, and we are moving the rest of her things this weekend. I was told that her ex abandoned them around the time their second child was born and has had no contact since then. Her mom is very nice, but keeps me at arm's length. He is an alpha dog. I don't think he wanted anyone else taking care of his only child and grandchildren. He would berate me for being too old. This would happen anytime I was around them. I'm non-confrontational, so I told my wife I would just stay away from them. However, I encouraged her to maintain their relationship since they only live a couple of blocks away. In February of this year, her ex reappeared and wanted to be involved in their lives. He is sketchy at best, but I couldn't refuse this. He started coming around often, and I set a boundary that he could come on weekends so as not to interfere with school, allowing us to control his visitation somewhat. He comes most weekends, but really spends little time alone with the kids as we try to give him space. I asked my wife if he had made any child support payments while he was gone. She said no. I suggested she talk to him about catching up on what he owes and ask about signing over his rights so I could adopt them. She said she would talk to him. The first part of March saw our life start to decline. You know where this is going, right? But I was oblivious at the time. When I mentioned it to my wife, she gave me the usual excuses. I noticed the little things around the house were different. My favorite snacks were gone and a few beers were missing. But the big issue was that I could smell what I thought was weed. When I asked my wife if she was smoking, she said she hadn't been. I thought the now 14-year-old might be smoking and suggested we talk with him. She said she would handle it. About 2 weeks ago, the 14-year-old asked me if I loved his mom. I said yes, thinking he might have a girlfriend and it was time for a talk. He then said that we always sat together and were touching each other in some way or another, which made him feel good. He asked if his mom loved his dad. I responded that sure, on some level she does. Why was he asking? He replied that they were always looking at each other, talking and touching, and that he is over all the time. When I asked what he meant by all the time, he said that almost every day when they get home from school, he is there and then leaves. That weekend, I was in the living room and he was over for visitation. He comes in and sits down across from me with a beer. I look up from my reading and tell him to help himself to a beer. He says nothing. I ask why he isn't with the kids. I can hear laughing in the family room. He says he might go in a little bit. I tell him I will not drink in front of the kids. I wait until after they are in bed. He says nothing. Then he states, "You know I am only here for her." I ask what that means and he's talking about my wife. He says technically they are not divorced, he never signed papers, so she is still his wife. I know a judge signed off on the divorce because he could not be found, which is why it took longer to finalize. I finally asked about the child support since I never heard back. He just looked at me and said that he was caught up, paid her $15K in cash. I was shocked. I asked if she talked to him about giving up rights. She never asked. He asked what it would be worth to me. I said, "You've got to be kidding. Would you sell your kids?" Before he could answer, I told him to leave. The next day, this past Sunday, the kids were at Grandma and Grandpa's with my wife. I bought and installed a small motion-activated camera on top of the TV with a view of the front door and living room. Nothing unusual happened until Wednesday around 10 a.m. when I received an alert on my phone. I was at work and initially thought it might be my wife cleaning, but I looked anyway. He comes back and she lets him in. They kiss long and passionately. He starts grabbing at her, she playfully pushes away, and they're laughing. He sits on the couch, she brings him a beer and snacks. At 10 a.m., she disappears and returns a few minutes later, changed and ready to go to school for lunch. They continue talking with more grabbing and pushing away, laughing. Eventually, she performs oral sex on him. She finishes, says something, and leaves. He watches TV and then takes a nap. A little after 1 p.m., another alert shows her coming home. They talk and head to the bedroom. I race home and find them. They never heard me coming. Hysterics ensue. He slithers out. I tell her she has to go. She pleads it was a one-time mistake, that he had just arrived and she was lonely because we weren't having sex. I call BS. I asked how often he came over. She claimed just on weekends. I showed her the video of him napping. She said he was tired and asked to rest. Then I showed her the video of the sexual act. She had nothing to say. I told her to pack her bags. She was out. I called her dad to take them in, saying we were having issues. He took an alpha position, telling me how I would mess this up. I finally stopped him, showed him the edited video, and told him to call me back if I was wrong. I never heard back. I spoke with my lawyer on Thursday. He referred me to a family law partner and will meet on Tuesday to discuss the divorce. He believes I might be responsible for child support but not alimony due to our prenuptial agreement. My question is, has anyone else been through a divorce and maintained a relationship with their ex's children even though they are not biologically theirs? The 14-year-old is vulnerable as he'll be entering high school next year, and I don't want to see him go down the wrong path like his father. User Mobiac said, "I'm so sorry, this sounds awful. I have a feeling that your wife was hiding him for longer than you think. But what kind of trashy family is giving you grief when their daughter is the one who messed up? Unfortunately, you got caught in a situation that had relative risk from the start. May I advise you not to give any money if they are not your kids. She won't utilize it for the boys. She's most likely to spend it with that joke of a man. So, what's the situation now? Is she still begging you?" User Superhero Stitch said, "Given the age of the kids, it's likely that they can participate in the divorce and custody conversation and express their own preferences. Some mediations allow the kids to have their own time alone with the decision maker to share their thoughts. It sounds like the kids are bonded to you, so don't lose hope that you'll still be a big part of their lives." A deleted user said, "You aren't in any position to generate security for the boys. They had you in their lives, were influenced by your love, and may even come back to share their lives with you. Maybe. You can do nothing more. She will try to keep you in their lives, but not for them. Any money you give her will go to clothes, drinks, a car, or whatever else. Instead, offer to buy their school clothes, take them shopping, cut off the tags, and keep the receipts. Offer to take them out to eat once a week, just them, stay in their lives only if it's on your terms and she benefits nothing. She is a lying manipulator and will continue to try to manipulate you. You'll get no support from her family. Those boys are going to have whatever life their mother gives them. That's just the way it is. Sorry." Update. Sorry, this update might be jumbled. I originally posted it in the wrong sub. This is the umpteenth time I have written this out, and each time it's shorter. I'm not sure how to cross-post, so I am retyping it. Please bear with me. Last week was busy with my daughter's graduation, moving her home, kids' sports starting, meetings with my lawyer, and the first face-to-face with my wife. I got home on Sunday and put my daughter's stuff from her apartment in the garage. I received a call early in the evening from my 14-year-old. Dad, what's going on? No one is talking to us. Mom and Grandma are crying and Grandpa's yelling. Is this because of what I told you? I assured him that his mom made a bad mistake and that he had nothing to do with this mess. He asked if I was packing up their stuff because he saw the U-Haul in the driveway. I explained what happened and that all their stuff would remain there. Monday and Wednesday were sports nights. The family sits in the bleachers while I stand behind home plate at the backstop, my usual spot since I don't see eye to eye with my father-in-law. On the way across the field, the oldest son stops his warm-up and runs over to me. We hug and talk for a few minutes before sending him back. As I get to my spot, a 10-year-old crashes into me at full speed. I bend down to hug and kiss him all over as he squirms away. My Phil asks if we could talk, so we step away from earshot. He apologizes for how he has treated me in the past and admits he was wrong. It's a little late for that, but I accepted his apology and said I knew it was hard for him to do. He invited me to sit with them, but I declined. He asked if I wanted to talk to my wife. I said Thursday would be better and suggested we set a time and place. Tuesday came and I met with my lawyer. I told him the whole story. He already knew some details from his partner, but wanted to hear it from me directly. He asked what I wanted to do, and I expressed that I wanted to stay with the boys and remain married because they were most important to me. He stated that in his experience, staying married would be a charade and not good for the boys. We could work out visitation if my wife was willing. As for support, he said I could do what I wanted for the boys, but advised against giving her anything that would allow me to control it. The prenup was solid. She violated its conditions, so there would be no support from me. He cautioned me that judges around the country have sometimes ordered child support in cases like mine due to being involved in the children's lives for so long. He didn't think our judges had ruled that way in the past, but you never know. He was sure her attorney would seek support, so he suggested we try to agree on everything we could before court. This would make a favorable impression on the judge. Before leaving, he mentioned that every Monday morning, the partners meet to discuss new and ongoing cases. My previous attorney started by describing everything. Each partner has a specialty: estate planning / elder law, criminal law, liability, family law. Later in the afternoon, the criminal lawyer met with my attorney. After their meeting, he called a contact in the prosecutor's office because $15K did not seem right to him. How do folks in the middle class have $15K in cash lying around? It turns out my wife's ex did not abandon them. He had been in jail. He was released 3 years ago when federal authorities were releasing nonviolent criminals to ease overcrowding. My attorney was sure that law enforcement would be interested if he was back and practicing his profession again, but he didn't have any other information beyond that jail time. Thursday, I met with my wife and FIL. I asked if they minded if I recorded the conversation so there would be no misinterpretation later. They agreed. Before we started, my wife wanted to talk privately, so Phil moved to another room. My wife started to apologize, but I cut her off. I told her, "Before you say anything, know that I know a lot more than you think." I asked how long the affair had been going on. She claimed it was only one time. I told her the video proves that is not true. I played a clip of her dusting the TV, which showed the camera she hadn't noticed. It's not big, but it's obvious sitting on top of the TV. She thought it was part of a video game system. I know the footage only covered a few days, but since she was gonna lie, I decided to bluff. She admitted that the affair had been going on since March, almost immediately after he came back into her life. I told her no more lies. Then I brought up the family secret, that her ex hadn't run away but had been in jail. She admitted this as well. I asked how long they had been in contact, and she said since February. When I asked if she had met up with him before he reappeared in February, she said no. Then I told her he had been out of jail for 3 years. The look on her face told me she didn't know. We brought Phil back into the room and turned on the recorder. I asked my wife if she had a lawyer. She said no. I told her to get one because a divorce was going to happen. Both she and Phil asked if reconciliation was possible, and I said no. I told them I wanted custody of the boys and that she could live with her ex if she wanted to. Privately, during our earlier conversation, I had told her that her ex tried to sell me custody of the boys. We settled on an agreement. The boys could see me anytime within reason and she would not keep me from them. I also made it clear that I would provide for them at my discretion, not through her, and that she would not receive any support from me. I emphasized that I didn't want her using the boys to ask me for things and that they needed to be honest with me if I asked them directly. There you have it. One last thing. Redditors, my wife and I are avid readers of this site. We have our favorite subs and used to read and share posts together. It was something we did as a couple. She has read my posts here because she figured out who wrote them and has read every reply you made. She stated that you savaged her in your comments. You said many things that I only wish I could have said because they reflected how I truly felt at times. For that, I thank you. This final post was made in the same subreddit by a throwaway account. The post is titled, "My GF of 3 years confessed to me that she only started dating me because she knew I had a massive crush on her for a very long time. Her roommate was the one to convince her to go on a pity date with me. So I have had a mega crush on my girlfriend ever since our school days. We were in the same school, although she was one class ahead of me. My crush was so obvious that everyone at school knew about it. If I was anywhere near her, people would give us mischievous smiles, and if we were sitting together, my friends would tease me mercilessly. In short, it was impossible for her not to know about my feelings. However, I never had the courage to ask her out. After school, we moved to different parts of the world for our education and weren't even Facebook friends. Around 3.5 years ago, I attended a friend's birthday celebration and saw her again. It was definitely her, only she had become even more gorgeous and badass. The friend whose birthday it was a mutual friend from our school, and he, of course, knew about my crush. There were 2 or 3 other mutual friends there who also knew about my feelings and encouraged me to go talk to her. So, with my heart in my mouth, I finally approached her and had a brief conversation. She recognized me from school and we had a nice chat before exchanging numbers and social media accounts. With great trepidation, I did some light detective work to find out if she was single. To my great relief, I didn't see any guys in her feed, so my hopes went up a little. I reached out to her to hang out, fully expecting her to turn me down, but she accepted, much to my surprise. We hung out and discovered that we had a lot in common, and we decided to meet up again. Things picked up from there, and eventually we became boyfriend and girlfriend. She is everything I expected and more. Plus, she is extremely happy with our relationship. We have even been discussing marriage. Last weekend, we hosted her best friend and her husband for dinner at our house. The best friend is someone I knew during our school days, and she is a good friend too. After dinner, we were shooting the breeze when her drunk best friend suddenly turned to my girlfriend and said, "Look how happy you are today. I feel a sense of pride seeing you two together." I smiled and said thank you. Then the best friend continued talking to my girlfriend. "You didn't even want to give this guy a chance. You only agreed when I pestered you to go on a pity date with him. Your plan was to let him down easy after that date, but instead, you guys are sitting here talking about your future together. It makes me so happy that I convinced you to take a chance on him. Can you imagine if you had stuck to your original plan?" Her husband quickly realized the awkwardness of the situation and led her away to sleep. I could see that my girlfriend was visibly stressed by what her friend had said. We went to bed too, and when she came in after changing clothes, she was already in tears. She took my hand in hers and said, "Please don't mind her words." I asked her if it was true, and she admitted that it was. She knew I always had a massive crush on her. When I asked her out, she didn't want to be mean by turning me down harshly, so she discussed it with her best friend, who was also her roommate at the time, about the situation. The best friend knew me well enough that she tried to convince my girlfriend to give me a chance, but my girlfriend wasn't convinced at first. Finally, the best friend asked her to go on 2 or 3 dates with me and then let me down easy if it didn't work out. My girlfriend agreed, but then she found out we really clicked together and wanted to continue dating, and well, here we are 3 years later. I hugged her and said it was okay, not to worry about it too much since it's water under the bridge. But as you can tell, it's obviously bothering me. I think she has started to catch on too because she has been extra attentive and loving since the incident. So Reddit, on one hand, I am the guy who is literally going to be engaged and eventually married to my crush. And it's even better than I imagined because our relationship is 10 times better than what I dreamed of. On the other hand, it stings a little to know that she only agreed to go out with me because she pitied me. No lie. Please knock some sense into me before I self-sabotage this wonderful relationship. Thank you. Update. In the morning, my girlfriend's best friend apologized for her insensitive comments the night before. She admitted she got too drunk and said she just wanted to take credit for setting us up and playing matchmaker. But in her drunken state, she blurted out some unnecessary things. I told her she didn't have to apologize and that in fact I should thank her for convincing my girlfriend to go on that first date with me. After the BFF left, I sat down with my girlfriend, shared my feelings, and asked her why she had been hesitant to go out with me in the first place. She took my hands in hers and explained that it just felt awkward at the time. She had known for years that I had a crush on her. On top of that, I was younger and a grade below hers in school. Her friends from back home used to tease her by bringing up my name, and almost all of our mutual friends knew about my crush on her. So when I asked her out, it felt awkward because she knew I was more into her than she was into me before we'd even gone on a single date. She felt like I had put her on a pedestal and was certain that reality would never live up to my fantasy of her, so she wanted to avoid going through that experience. She also admitted that she thought I was a bit of a weirdo back then, but after her BFF vouched for me and encouraged her to give me a chance, she decided to go out with me with the intention of letting me down gently after 2 to 3 dates. I then asked her what changed after the first date. She smiled and said, "Well, you didn't give off any weird vibes. Yes, you were very happy and nervous, but I didn't get any creepy vibes from you at all. You were just a guy with a crush, one with whom I had insane chemistry even on the first date. And now, 3 years later, I think I have a bigger crush on you than you ever had on me." After having this conversation, we decided to go out for dinner at the same restaurant where we had our first date. We even tried to order the same dishes, but found out that one of them had been discontinued. So instead, we decided to try something entirely new, dishes we'd never had before. That's the update, guys. Thank you for reminding me how lucky I am. User Irika said, "My dad's friend found a wife by standing in the market square with a sign stating that he was new in town, worked at Factory X, and needed a date for a New Year's ball. His future wife felt adventurous. To this day, she tells how she went broke because she paid the bills and bought tickets for her friends, who kept an eye on them during their first dates. They are still going strong after 40 years. User Loyal Crow List said, "I understand why she was hesitant. When someone has such a well-known crush on you, there's a ton of pressure if you decide to go out with them. I know from experience. There are expectations, people have already been talking about what kind of couple you might be, and there's constant teasing. I once dated someone who had a crush on me because everyone said I should give him a chance, and I didn't want to judge him unfairly. It turned out terribly. He had so many expectations for me and what I'd be like, and then everyone kept saying things like, 'Oh, they're finally together,' which made it even harder to break things off when it didn't work out. But this worked out perfectly for them. She was able to get past her anxiety and worry and realize that she really liked him. I'm so glad it worked because this is such a sweet story."